Hi everyone, this is Elias Martin of CollectingJapanesePrints.com. Welcome to Woodblock Wednesday, where every Wednesday we get together and discuss Japanese prints, paintings, history, and culture. This is a Woodblock Wednesday that's focused on a contemporary artist, but I'd like to add a little bit more context and probably some more of maybe me as opposed to the artist. But I'd like to make connections between different designs and different artists. So I'll add a little bit of what I see. But this print is by a contemporary Japanese American artist, Masami Teraoka. And Teraoka was actually born in Japan, but moved to the United States in his mid-20s, and he studied art. And he moved to California, in fact, and he was in LA for really the important part of the pop movement, or at least the California version of it. Tom Wasselman's work is highly influential to Teraoka, and he combines his really whimsical, interesting style of ukiyo-style prints, particularly the work of Kunisada, or Toyokuni III, is very influential to him, and he puts these characters, these figures that you might see in ukiyo-e in contemporary situations. And the designs are whimsical, they're funny, but there's social commentary to them, and there's a lot to unpack in his prints and paintings. And so I have a really wonderful example that is in my current exhibition of prints and paintings on my website. It's the current exhibition is masterpieces from all genres, and I encourage you to have a look if you haven't had a chance. There's amazing pieces. I'm really, really fortunate to have the works that I have in that exhibition. I included one last week in the Woodblock Wednesday video of a Hokusai painting, so it's of that caliber. So have a look. But without further ado, let's have a look at the print we're discussing today. So this is a large size print. I mean, it doesn't even have a convention. I can't call it a diobon or double diobon or anything. It is just its own thing. It almost reminds me of almost like a scroll format print, except it's horizontal. And so, it's a really large work, a high quality color lithograph on arches, buff paper. And as I said, the artist is Masami Teraoka, and Teraoka was born in 1936 in Japan. His family actually supported his artistic endeavors. I believe his family was involved in textiles, and so he had art and design on his mind very early in life. But he traveled to the U.S. and settled in California for a bit and studied art. And there, he was really influenced by the California style pop art. And so he incorporated all of those influences. Now, Teraoka moved to Hawaii and created a studio there where he currently lives now. And this work depicts a woman, a diver or a snorkeler, off the bay, a Hawaiian bay. The title is Namiyo at Hanauma Bay, and the work was done in 1985. And so, those are the particulars about the print. But I want to point out some of the interesting sort of connections we can make that I'm sure Teraoka was making when he produced the print. First of all, the design, and let's just take a look at the entire thing, is done in the style of an ukiyo-e print, particularly the Utagawa school style. And this work looks like a Toyokuni III or a Kunisada print. And, it's interesting because you'll see in the cartouche here, there's two cartouches. he did them as if they're Toyokuni the Third cartouches, although they don't say Toyokuni the Third. They're done in that style. He even added a censor seal here, which is really funny. And so the work is certainly a contemporary work of art, looking back, and he's placing his Kunisada or Toyokuni the Third figure in a contemporary setting, because we know this, because she has a snorkeling visor and the tube. And so, we see this figure in the water, doing something, anyone on vacation might be doing. So it's very humorous. You could kind of see a Toyokuni's, figure saying, okay, well, I'm done with ukiyo-e. Today I'm going to go on vacation. So there is this sort of humorous quality to it. But it's also, there's other connections we can make. The comb here is a comb that we would see on a 19th century print, or even earlier. And it's a comb that you would see in a few designs. And, I want to bring those up so we could kind of make the connection. But when I look at this print, especially with the woman's long hair, we could see how long it is. It's caught in one of the waves, or the way the water is sort of moving in and out. And the hair really echoes the form of the waves. This reminds me of Utamaro's Awabi divers. And so there's these divers that would be able to go to really great depths and pick up, shells. And so basically these divers that Utamaro was famous for producing in his prints were striking designs. There were beautiful women with long, unkept hair because of the diving, and they were charged with this really interesting sort of sexual energy to his prints. Something that you don't normally associate with Utamaro exactly. He was quite sophisticated and tame, but these designs invoke that kind of quality. And so what I've done is I pulled out a book of Utamaro prints. This is a really good reference book that I would recommend. And I've bookmarked some of these divers. So basically, you could see here, my phone is acting up. Okay, I'm trying to orient the book so that you could see the divers with their long, unkept hair. Here they are again. This is a really famous triptych, completes, and these are the individual sheets. And so, when we look, we could also see the comb in her hair. And so these prints being half nudes with the unkept hair really do have a sexually charged quality to them. This one in particular here as well. And so when I here, let me close this book. So when I look at this print, certainly the idea of Utamaro's Awabi divers comes to mind. But in this particular case, we have a snorkeler. And maybe the artist is making a small sort of criticism of what's been lost. Back in the Edo period, women or these divers were able to go down deep and hold their breath for minutes at a time. In fact, I think it's been counted that they could hold their breath for 6 to 8 minutes, which is mind-boggling to me. But knowing that, then we have this sort of same kind of diver, but she needs a snorkeling tube, so to be able to breathe. So maybe there's something going on there. I find that kind of interesting. Maybe this is a little bit more me than the artist, but I'd like to really kind of think about his scenes and see what maybe commentary, maybe some social criticism that he might be, invoking. Now, the artist is certainly known to have done that in many of his other designs. This is a tame work, really beautiful, well balanced, but there are other designs in this book right here, Masami Teraoka, from Tradition to Technology, The Floating World Comes of Age. There's a lot of imagery that is challenging, and the images really are critiques of consumerism. They're critiques of the way that the AIDS crisis was handled. All kinds of, ideas about social commentary and just criticisms on different things. And so basically, he did. What I'm thinking of is he did a series of screens that sort of invoked the AIDS epidemic at its height. I mean, he was working at that time, and these screens are amazing. They're dark, they're very challenging, but they're very powerful. And so the artist is certainly interested in bringing up issues with contemporary culture, and I think he does it in a great way because he's bringing in historical figures or artistic figures, and then putting them in a contemporary setting, which I find in some ways disarming, engaging, but also thought-provoking. So, I thought I'd bring that up. The other books that I have here, there's a book, this particular book on Kunisada that I just pulled from my bookshelf, and I just kind of started flipping through it. And, I found some figures here that remind me of the figure in Teraoka's print. So you could certainly see the connection of the style of the woman in his print. And then these also have that cartouche, that very distinctive Toyokuni III or Kunisada cartouche that Teraoka is echoing in his print. You can see that there. Now, I spoke quite a bit about the print. Now I just want to zoom in so you could see the wonderful printing quality of this work. It's fascinating because the way that the artist made the cartouches, they're a little fuzzy, which suggests printing from a wood block. And also, you get this kind of fuzziness when the wood block has been printed over and over again. So he's sort of suggesting that it's an older, more weathered blocks that were used to make this print. You could see little flaws in the cartouche, in the characters that you would find on woodblock prints. I just love that. And then also the way that the print is oriented, it's trimmed into the cartouche. Now this print is not trimmed. It is in perfect condition, and this is the way that the artist issued this design. But the point is, this is what you normally see on Edo period prints. Most of them are trimmed. And so he echoes this feeling of an old print by reproducing these things that you actually see on Edo period prints now in a contemporary context. The colors here are very rich, very lush, and he's been very successful at replicating bokashi, this wonderful dark blue that graduates to a lighter blue and then a very faint sky blue. That's just great. And of course, right here, these waves, the way that he designed the waves of the ocean cresting and coming down, this looks like the work of Hokusai, which is great. This whole thing is really a lot of the artists looking back and looking at some really iconic designs and putting them all together. Again, we have the cartouche, and notice how it's been printed to sort of echo weathered or aged woodblock prints. And that's I like those little touches. Now, just so that I can show you, Teraoka on his, let's see if I could do this with one hand. I can. On his important large-scale prints like this, he signs the work on the back, Masami Teraoka, and in this case, it is also hand numbered 145 out of 150. And so his prints in the contemporary marketplace are very sought after, and the collectors who collect them are they vary. Some of them have no interest in Edo period prints, and they just find his contemporary designs really compelling. But then there's a number of collectors who do collect Edo period prints, and they like to show them side by side and to show those connections that the artist was thinking of. Now I just want to zoom in also, you could see the face and how the hair was created. It looks like, again, hair that would be printed on a woodblock print. Really great. Now, besides this work, I did want to point out a couple things that are in my current exhibition. And, I don't know if people notice this, but I like to offer groups of prints that have conversations with each other. Particularly, you're looking through my exhibition and you're looking at prints from the Edo period, and then you're scrolling down and you see things Meiji, and then, of course, 20th century. But I like to assemble groups of prints that sort of have a conversation, as I said. And so today, let me move these books. And again, I just want to point out that this book on Masami Teraoka is great. These two books are the quintessential. Well, this one is the most important quintessential book on Kunisada. This is a recent publication that I find very, intriguing and also helpful. And then this book relates to the two prints that I'm going to show you. So let me move the books over so they're not in our way. And so the print that I want to show this is in my current exhibition. And I'm fortunate enough to have two impressions of this design that are very different. One is a rare variant without the background that this one has, but this one has a silver mica background, which is neat. So these two prints are done by Kiyoshi, and they're known by the title Glossy Dark Hair. They were done in 1931, and they're fantastic Shinhanga designs. They're oversized. They're basically almost two Oban sized prints if you laid them going across like that. But here, let me move this book so that I can move them into the light a little bit more. But, what I want to showcase is this is a Kiyoshi's nude, and the focus is on her hair, but there's an echo. And the echo, I think, is both of these artists, Kiyoshi and Teraoka, are thinking back to Utamaro's Awabi divers. And they're really focusing on one of the attributes of these divers that made them really exotic and sexually charged, and it's the figure's hair. How long this hair just goes on and on for forever. It takes up most of the composition, actually. And let me zoom in so you could kind of see the hair has been done. Been treated really well. You could see individual strands in the printing. It's quite beautiful the way that it's been carved. And so when I look at this, I can't help to think of, as I said, Utamaro's Awabi divers. And when I look at this print again, I see the artist looking back, and it's interesting to compare these two designs and have them side by side because they're doing different things, but again, they're both sort of looking back at this moment in history, in Japanese print history, and being inspired by it. Now, I want to bring this one over because to many of you, this one might be new. And you'll see under the light how beautiful the work is with the silver mica that is in the background of the print. This is a really rare variant. You don't see this variant as often as the finished normal issued print with the beautiful Beren work in the background. But I think both of them are compelling for so many. I mean, I could go on and on and on about each impression, but the design is striking. But I just love the fact that Kiyoshi or the publisher decided to do a different version of it with a silver background. It reminds me of Goyo's designs, but it also reminds me of there was a period of time when there were these art with Shinsui, Katundo, and Kiyoshi now did these white lines around the nudes. And so reminds me of the Katundo and Shinsui designs with the white line around the nudes form. And because you do get that here. The mica is not printed all up to the figure. There's like a halo around the figure, which I actually really like. It creates kind of like, a halo, but it creates depth. And it's really fascinating. I've not seen something like this. Usually with mica, the entire background has been treated with mica. But in this case, as you can see, there's that sort of, I mean, it's almost like a shadow that the figure is casting. It's quite nice. So I'm going to zoom in on both prints so you could see them. I'm going to try to avoid the shadow that my phone is casting onto the paper. And I should point out that this impression, both of these are impeccable. The condition is pristine. You rarely see impressions in this condition. The pink in the body is so strong and so beautifully printed. There's a lot of these in the marketplace. I mean, you see them come up for sale, but the pink is usually faded. And in this case, these prints were never framed. And so the color of this impression is fantastic. In the background here, you also see sort of a little bit of yellow and green mixed in with the blue, which, again, you don't often see that because the yellow disappears. It fades when you expose this print to light. And so this basically tells me that the impression is pristine. And we'll come down over here so you could see. Here, I'll move it over. The light is so much better on here. It's interesting. You can see the figure is, there's a lot of pink on here, but it's more subtle. It's more of a realistic flesh tone, and I was just looking at the woman's toes, and her toenails have been done, and they look pink, whereas here her toenails look about the same color as her body. So it's fascinating, these changes in the block. So again, these two are in my current exhibition, masterpieces from all genres, and then this work is also in the same exhibition. And so I thought it would be neat to showcase. Here, I'm going to step back a little bit. You could see all of them. I thought it'd be neat to showcase all three of them. Similar figures. So echoing the same sort of theme. They're both drawing their inspiration from Utamaro. And who can blame them, because Utamaro was just a fantastic artist and produced such beautiful portraits of women. All right, so I'm going to zoom in one last time so you could look at the printing. Well, that does it for this installment of Woodblock Wednesday. Thanks for joining me. As I mentioned, these works are illustrated on my website, collectingjapaneseprints.com. I'm currently featuring a fantastic exhibition. It's probably the best one I've done yet, so I invite all of you to have a look. There's some great pieces there. And for those of you who don't know, I also have a bookstore on my website and a bunch of reference material for all of you who are interested in learning more about prints in museums all around the world. And so I have a lot of information. So I invite all of you to have a look on my website. And, and all of these videos, all of my Woodblock Wednesday videos are archived on my website. And each video, there's a link to each video which is hosted on YouTube. So I invite all of you to have a look at my previous videos. So it was a pleasure to be able to present to you a fantastic contemporary print by Teraoka, one of the masters of the contemporary art movement, with a interesting Japanese bent to it, and two really wonderful prints by Kiyoshi of the Shinhanga movement. And I look forward to showing you something else next week at Woodblock Wednesday. So until then, I'll see you soon.